Hello fellow collectors and welcome to Long's Toys. Today we are taking a look at Leader Class Laser Optimus Prime from the brand new Transformers Legacy line from Hasbro. I got lucky and found this at my local Target. There was only one. There were several Galvatrons still, and I think that's going to be a common problem. I think we're going to have some Galvatrons shelf warming while everyone goes for this guy. I will say though, be careful with these. I've already checked and the contents of this box are indeed Laser Optimus Prime, but I've seen lots of people online open theirs up and there's water bottles and other things for similar weight. So because we're going into the windowless packaging, which is good, you do run that risk. So I would just check to make sure that all of the tape looks original. Nothing's been kind of opened and resealed, because you don't want to get home and find out that there's just a bunch of garbage inside. So definitely be careful for that. But overall, the windowless packaging I think does look good. It leaves a lot of room for artwork here on the front, which I think looks really nice. You have that artwork continuing over here on the side. And then over here we have the Autobot mural that they have going on. I have still not found a Decepticon for this line, so I cannot tell you if there's a different Decepticon mural or not. I'm hoping there will be. Not too much going on the bottom. Actually, I guess I should have looked at the Galvatron one when I was in the store. I was just so excited to find Prime. Any case, here is some test shots of the robot mode, the vehicle mode, and then, of course, the base mode that his trailer turns into. You do have the QR code for the tech specs over here as well. So, pretty cool packaging. I really like the color scheme and everything. I'm going to go ahead and get Optimus out of the box, and we're going to take a closer look. So, here is Laser Optimus Prime out of the packaging. He looks pretty great. Rolls fairly well. You can see you have some nice range of movement here with the cab and the trailer, so you can get some really tight turns. I think that's pretty cool. This just connects with this long peg right there, pegging into this little spot right there, very simply. Looks pretty cool. He does come with two accessories. So we have the sword, and then we have this, I guess this is an axe. I don't love this thing. It's fine. I don't need it. The original, back in the day, came with a sword, so I guess that makes total sense for him to have a sword here. This thing is just kind of meh. You can bend this in half if you want. I thought this was originally supposed to be so that it could, like, turn into a gun, but then it doesn't really, like, you know, this part here could kind of act as, like, a gun barrel, but it doesn't really, so I guess it just really bends in half for storage, as you'll see in a minute. You can also peg these together. So you can kind of pop this into the top of this one and then get this really big, ridiculous sword. I mean, I think this is just supposed to be like a sword and an axe. But I would have liked some kind of detailing to the axe. Like, just giving me an oval on a peg is not really the best axe as far as I'm concerned. But maybe it's supposed to resemble the Matrix. I don't really know. This is just kind of goofy and stupid, though. But it's there. It can do it. So you can store both of these on the truck. I'm going to go ahead and take the trailer off for a second. If you come underneath, there is a spot right here and here that has these pegs on the sword that just go right in there. And they pop in. And so you can store that underneath. You can also fold this in half. And then there is a spot, let's see, right in here, I think, that these two pegs right here will pop into right there, like so. The only problem is when that's on there, you can't attach the trailer. The trailer doesn't connect anymore because that lifts it too high up. So that's a trade-off, but if you just wanted to have the cab, you could store both the weapons there and not connect the trailer, but there are plenty of other places to put this, so I'm going to go ahead and take these off for the moment, but just wanted to show that they can attach underneath. Anytime you handle the cab, these things want to fold in. I'm pretty sure that the entire, like, midsection down is just a reuse from Earthrise Prime, but it's fine. I mean, Earthrise Prime was a pretty fantastic figure, so reusing his lower half is not really a problem in my book. But anytime I move these kind of want to... Anytime I handle this, I inadvertently end up pushing those in. But you can see we got a little bit of the robot kibble underneath here for the shoulder pads. Otherwise, he's pretty clean. Really nice cab mode. I love the flames. Really, really sharp, like I said. Rolls pretty well. Trailer, pretty basic. Not really too much going on here. Let's go ahead and we'll do the transformation for the trailer first. So here is the trailer. One thing you can do right away, this little spot here, this is the peg where it connects to the cab. You can bring this down And then this can act as like a third leg for the trailer so it doesn't fall over, which is nice. So if you ever want him to kind of like drop the trailer off somewhere and drive away as just the cab, you can have it not fall over, which is pretty cool. Gonna go ahead and push this back in. Otherwise, there's not really too much to it. There's a little gun up here that you can detach, but I'm gonna wait until we open it up because it's much easier to detach that way. Transformation for this thing is pretty basic. We're going to go ahead, pop this back down. This whole thing will lift up. Let me zoom out here so we can see everything we're doing. The two sides here will just drop straight down, and then you have this little ramp here that will drop down. One thing to note though, this is just a normal ramp. It doesn't have those connector pieces for all the other ramps like with Earthrise, so you can't really straight connect this. You could kind of just situate them next to each other, but that is just a normal ramp. It does not have those connector pieces, so if you were hoping that this was going to connect to the Earthrise ramps, unfortunately it doesn't really. Moving the camera up just slightly, we are going to spin this around because this is kind of on a ball joint here. You can see there's a big ball joint right there, so we're going to spin this around on the ball joint and then kind of drop this down, and then here at the midsection this will drop down, and then you can flip this back up, and now you can have the gun. So we can take this gun completely off and he can hold this in his hand later on, which we'll check out. So that is an option, but otherwise it's meant to be right here, and you can either spin this around at this point or the entire tower can spin around, which is kind of cool. So it's a pretty basic little base. You do have a little grabber claw right here that you can flip out, which is kind of cool, and they kind of just have you... This is the full transformation for the base. Again, not much going on. I believe the original had like an air-activated missile launcher, which is kind of cool. I understand why they're getting away from that. But yeah, he's not bad. Now you can store the weapons on here as well. So you can see that there is a spot right here. You can attach the sword on either side, or there's a spot right here you can attach the axe on either side. They are exactly the same. So you can attach the axe on either side here, and you can just peg that in like so. And then you can come over to the other side and attach the sword by pegging that into this little spot right here. Just like that. Now the nice thing is you can leave those pegged in and close this up. So if you wanted to bring this back up like so, put the ramp in, and then close this up. So that's another option for storing the weapons. This will completely close up with those pegged in inside. So if you don't want him to store on the cab, you can store the weapons in the trailer, which is a nice touch because then you can still connect the trailer to the cab. Because if you store them on the cab, as we saw earlier, they will not connect. So that's a nice option. The other thing that's kind of cool, you can play with this a little bit, because this part's on a ball joint, so if I bring this down, you know, the grabber claw doesn't really bend the way you might want it to, but because this is on a ball joint, you can kind of bend this around, and then maybe you could have the grabber claw kind of work like this. You can kind of tilt this. I think you can. I guess that's actually where that tops out. But I was thinking, like, if, say, someone was wounded or something and you wanted to position a figure here and then have, like, the grabber claw kind of working on them or something like that, you do have that option. So you have a little bit of playability with that in terms of how that can move around. But you kind of can't move this much further down than this. I don't think that'll go any further than that. So I wish this bent a little bit further down this way, but if you do it the other way, it can. So, you know, you have a couple options there in terms of how you want this to move around, but for the most part, you have a turret, you have a grabber claw, and you have some weapons storage and a ramp. So, not the most incredible base, but it is fairly decent. So the transformation to robot mode is definitely more complex than you might think, but overall not too bad. We can start by flipping out the toes and the heels on the bottom here. They flip out very easily. We're going to lift up these panels here on the side and just put them out about a 45-degree angle so far. Then you can kind of push these in on the side because they want to definitely go in on themselves. Go ahead and drop this down, and then you can flip these two panels in. And I will say, straight out of the box, this does come packed in the vehicle mode, but these are pushed in and these are pushed in. So it's not fully transformed into the cab mode. It's, 95% of the way there, but these should be popped out for the official transformation of the cab mode, and now I can't get them to come back out. And then these little panels have to be flipped out. And really what these do, the reason they stay flipped out is that this peg here kind of like pegs into the bottom of the arm piece here, what will become the arm, and that just kind of lines everything up nicely. So they're not like, this is how they should be, and this is how it comes in the box, just for you guys know that, so that way you can make sure to do it correctly when you're transforming back into the cab mode. We can go ahead and split the legs apart here if we want. It doesn't really matter at this point. We're going to go ahead and drop this section down, but we have to kind of loosen the arms first. So let me zoom out a little bit here. You just kind of loosen the arms and swing them up so that way we can bring this down. Now I will say this is what you have to be careful of, because this panel here wants to get in the way of the smokestacks here. So when you're moving these around, you need to be careful. Like I kind of like to bring this all the way up for right now, so that way this can come and rest all the way back, because there's just the tiniest little bit of clearance issue with the smokestacks and this panel, so just be careful of that. Let me go ahead and angle this up a little bit. At this point, we can go ahead and split the front of the cab in half, and this will kind of drop down like so. And then you want to kind of bring these down so that they are straight across. And you can see, if I move this out of the way, the joint here in the shoulder, you want to kind of make sure that's straight across. At this point, you can come to the back and drop this cab section all the way back like so. And that will kind of free up the arms. You can kind of start to bring them out. You don't really have to do much with them yet, but you can kind of just start to bring them out like so. We're going to take this section here, which is going to become the chest, and you kind of have to like loosen this a little bit as you bring this section around, because when you get to about here, there's a little bit of a clearance issue with these two pegs, those two big red pegs, and that you have to loosen so that you can swivel this all the way around. And then the abdomen section will swing out and click into place like so. You can move these panels out of the way just for clearance and kind of leave that up like that. At this point, these two side panels will come up and form the sides of the chest. And then you can kind of drop this down, and then this will close into place, and everything will click very nicely into place like that. At that point, you can bring these arms around, and they will click into these panels like so. And then you can spin at the bicep 180 degrees. You can see how they're kind of off center now. By spinning them 180, they will be perfectly flush like that. You can go ahead and bring this head section around, and this will click into place. Then you're going to come here. You can see that there's a little panel right here, because normally you could just close this, but if you do that, it's going to be all empty under there. So what they've actually done, which I think is actually pretty cool, they have this little panel that you just flip out, and it's a little difficult to figure out a way to get it to pop down. But once you do that, when you close this up, that's completely closed up now. So it's just a tiny little touch, but it's kind of nice. I do appreciate it. And then you'll just kind of peg that back in against the body. And now you can see we have our Optimus Prime head. I'm going to zoom in and take a look at this now, because it's very difficult to see once you get the shoulder pauldrons in place. I don't know what it is, but I feel like the eyes on mine are a little messed up. And I know it's ridiculously hard to see because it casts so much shadow. It's really hard to see. The other thing that's kind of funny is, at least on mine when I first got it, the head is just on a ball joint, was pushed so far down to the chest, I kind of had to wiggle it off, and the whole head popped off, and then I popped it back on so that I could get the full range of motion out of the head. Because you should be able to head tilt down a little bit, up a little bit. Can't really tilt side to side all that much, but then you can look side to side. But it just casts so much shadow, and it's really, really hard to see there, because the eyes are so sunken into the head. It's kind of neat in a way. I think it's going to be great when they eventually do Black Convoy, because it's going to give him a very, like, in the shadows look, although they'll probably give him really bright pink eyes, so you'll still be able to see it. But that actually kind of surrounded by shadow might be really, really neat. But the paint applications look pretty good. I mean, I think the blue head looks fantastic. The silver for the mouth covering, and then the little crest up here look pretty good. I really can't show you the eyes because it just casts so much shadow. I'll have to see what I can do about that later on. But the head looks good. I definitely think it looks pretty cool. So at this point, oh, there you go. You can kind of see the eyes there. Mine, I believe they're supposed to be like a little bit lighter blue than the head, but mine almost look unpainted to the point that they kind of look black. And I don't know if that's a mistake on mine, or if that's how they're supposed to look, or if, again, it's just the shadow. But it's really kind of hard to see the eye paint on mine. Could just be a production error. At this point, we're going to kind of bring these down, and these will kind of click into place, and then you can put these little flaps back down like so. So kind of move this around, and it'll kind of naturally click into place. Oh, we have to spin the waist around 180 degrees. So at this point, we're just about done. We're going to flip out this bottom section here so that we can flip out the hands, which you can see are on a tiny little ball joint, which is kind of cool. But then when you close this up, you lose all functionality of that ball joint, so that it's really just a wrist swivel. But you do still have the wrist swivel. So pop this down to repeat the process for this arm. Pop out the hand, close that up, and then close that. And there you go. There is Optimus Prime, Laser Optimus Prime, I should say, in robot mode. And he looks good. He really looks good. Like I said, the transformation is definitely more complex than I first expected. Because if you remember the original toy, it was literally just pull these down, arms were just flush against the side, and then split the legs apart. And that was pretty much it. That was your Laser Optimus Prime. It was pretty basic. But this guy looks good. And I really do think the transformation is fun. It's a little, I don't want to say difficult at first, but you know, the first time you run through the directions, you're kind of like, wait, what am I doing? But then you do it once or twice, and it's very intuitive, very quick and easy to do, and he really, really looks fantastic. So we already took a look at the head articulation. You can't really move the shoulder pauldrons at all. All of the articulation comes from down here at the shoulder, so this should be clicked in. Let's make sure that these are both clicked in. But you have a hinge here, as you can see. You have movement front to back, kind of a nice ratchet. You can hear that there. You do have the bicep swivel. You have 90 degrees there at the elbow. You have a wrist swivel. Like I said, it is a ball joint, but you kind of lose that when you close this up. But you can see it there. And this is blue painted over top of a black piece because you can see the ball joint there. And it looks really good. I think they did a nice job. It's a nice matte finish there for the hands, which I think looks pretty cool. So nice range of motion there in the arms. You have a waist swivel here. Kick pretty far forward. Kick pretty far back. You might have to give it a little bit just because of the pieces molded under there, but you can get all the way back. You can kick out to the side, but you might have to move the arms out of the way. You have a thigh swivel there. You have a nice 90-degree bend there in the knee. You do have, of course, ankle tilt has become a staple for Transformers. Can't really do much front to back, but you do have that nice ankle tilt. So all in all, I think he looks really good. Really nice articulation. Like I said, I'm pretty sure from the waist down, he is just Earthrise Prime. But again, that was a great mold, so I'm okay with it. And overall, he just looks really, really cool. If you were a G2 kid and you have a soft spot for Laser Prime, I think this definitely does him justice. And you're going to want to grab this one. But that's not all. He comes with those accessories, as we looked at earlier. So we have the sword. You can go ahead and pop that into his hand pretty easily. He's got this weird axe thing that if we go ahead and put this in his other hand, he can dual wield bladed weapons. So we got that going on. So yeah, he looks okay dual wielding the two weapons. It's all right. You can also make this ridiculously gigantic sword, as we talked about earlier, which I still think looks kind of dumb, but you can pop that in there and then give him this ridiculously massive, giant, weird sword thing. But, again, I just think that looks kind of dumb, but it is what it is, so we have that going on. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we do have this gun that we pulled off the top of the trailer, so we can give him this. If you want to give him a gun, you can have him hold it in his hand. You can peg it in here for some reason. The directions show you doing that. And you can even kind of put it onto the side of his leg, anywhere he has one of those connection spots. You could peg it on there as well. He surprisingly doesn't have any of those on the side of the forearms. I assume that's because of the way this transforms and the plastic will be too thin, so that's why he doesn't have anything there. But you certainly have them here on the side of the leg, so you could peg it on there as well. He does have the Matrix. If we go ahead and pop this open, you can see the Matrix there. It's a little difficult to pop out of here, I'll be 100% honest. Usually I have to use my little tweezers to get it out of here. You can just kind of pop it out. Come on. It's a little difficult. There we go. So we can close this back up then. And then we have the super tiny little matrix. Now, this could very well be the exact same matrix that came with Earthrise Prime. I honestly don't know. I don't have him handy, unfortunately, to do a comparison, but it does look very similar. It could be a little bit smaller. I'm not 100% sure, but I think this works really well. This just lifts right up here. You just pop that right in there, holds really nicely, and then close that up. Now, you can see it underneath, but it's not a big problem. I think that looks fine. I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. So yeah, he's got a decent array of weapons. I still think that this axe is kind of dumb, but I do like the sword because, like I said, the original Laser Prime had a sword. So if I put this back in his hand, why is this not cooperating? Sometimes it is strangely, weirdly hard to get this in here, and I'm not really sure. Oh, you know why? Because it has this little tab there on the side. You got to make sure that's on the right side. That's why it's doing that. There we go. So yeah, he looks great with the regular sword. I even kind of like the gun. I think that works. As I'm knocking it. What am I doing here? What am I doing? Let's go ahead. Get that in there. So he's got the gun. He's got the sword. He's also got these crazy pieces here that can open up on his gigantic shoulders. And then you've got a missile barrage inside there, which is really cool. So that's even more weaponry. He's pretty decked out. I got to be honest. He's pretty decked out in terms of weaponry. I don't like this thing. I don't know why it's here, but again, if I want to ignore it, I can ignore it, and that's fine. I have a really nice sword. I have a decent little gun. I've got missile barrage, and also I can bring the trailer back in. Ooh, I can break the trailer. So apparently that piece comes off. We're learning all these things. That just goes right back on there. And that's how it spins around. But anyway, he's got this trailer. You can see how it scales. He's very much taller than the trailer, as you can see. I wish there was some kind of, like, yes, I can take this and I can put this back on here. And I do like that. I like that it has this gun on the top here and it can spin around. But I wish he had more. I wish the trailer had some kind of, like, I believe the original one had, like, the piece here flipped down, and that's where you put the rocket that you, like, pushed the actuator down and it fired. But he also had, like, a larger gun, although that might be what this is replacing. If I'm remembering correctly, the larger gun might have sat up here and was also removable for him to hold in his hand, if I'm remembering that correctly. It's fine. The trailer's fine. I just wish it had a little bit more in terms of weaponry, but it's not bad. But yeah, I think the robot mode, absolutely fantastic. So I really like this one a lot. Now I have to admit, I'm not primarily a G2 kid. I did grow up with G1. Actually, around the time I was born, Rodimus Prime was my Prime, and I know that's blasphemy to a lot of people. Of course, I've come to love Optimus over the years. And as G2 came out, you know, I was kind of collecting what I could. I don't think I had the original Laser Prime, but I definitely got, what did they call him later? Scourge, when he was part of Robots in Disguise. So I got the Black Convoy repaint, which I really, really like that toy a lot. And I think this one definitely does it justice. I think the robot mode is fantastic. The transformation is definitely more intricate than you would expect. Certainly more intricate than the original toy. I definitely think that from the waist down, he's just Earthrise Prime. But like I said, that was a great mold, so I'm really okay with it. The cab mode looks great when it's transformed. Articulation's great. Paint applications are great. If I had to complain about anything, I wish the trailer did a little bit more in the base mode. Like I said, from what I remember of the original toy, there was definitely like an air pressure actuator to fire missiles. I definitely understand why they didn't go that route for this, but they could have given us maybe something to kind of, you know, pop out of these sides here, maybe some kind of weaponry or something that could have, you know, popped out when you open this all up, just to give us a little bit something more. The ramp here, just a basic ramp, does not have the connection spots for the Earthrise ramps. That might bother some people. It doesn't bother me terribly all that much because you can still kind of just situate the bases and other things around if you really want to. They don't have to directly connect, but some people might be a little bummed about that. I like the cannon up here. I like that this can swivel around. I like that you can detach the gun and have him hold it or connect it to the various ports around his body. The grabber claw I wish had a little bit more articulation, but again, that's really not that big of a deal. I like how you have the weapons storage here and you can actually close the trailer up with them inside because it's not really convenient to connect the weapons to the cab because then you can't connect the trailer to the cab when you have this weird axe thing attached, but at least I can just hide it in the trailer and pretend it doesn't exist. I think the sword looks great. Again, the original toy had a sword, so that makes total sense. And I like the gun. I don't really like the weird axe thing. If it was going to be an axe, they could have done a little bit more to make it look like an axe instead of just a weird oval. I know I keep harping on it, but it's not really that big of a deal because it's just an extra accessory. If you don't like it, just put it to the side or hide it in the trailer and forget it exists. But yeah, I think this guy's definitely worth picking up. Like I said, I would definitely check if you find him in store. Make sure the tape is all still originally sealed, because there has been a rash of people kind of taking them home, taking the figures out, putting other things of, equal weight inside and then returning them to the store. So definitely be on the lookout for that. But if you can get your hands on one of these, I definitely recommend picking him up because I think he's pretty fantastic. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, thanks so much for watching.